If you've ever had a boss who overshared, you'll understand my pain. But my situation was like a corporate soap opera with me as the unwilling audience, and apparently, the main supporting character. I'm Lisa. 32 years old, senior marketing specialist, lover of coffee, and firm believer that therapy should be a licensed profession, not an unspoken clause in my job description. Unfortunately, my boss, Dan, missed that memo. Dan is 54, twice divorced, and somehow thinks every single life event he experiences is crucial for the company's strategic goals. How? I have no idea. But it's always urgent. On Monday morning, I walked into the office, ready to tackle a backlog of emails. I hadn't even put my bag down when I heard his voice. Lisa, you won't believe what Linda texted me last night. Linda was wife number 2. They'd been divorced for 4 years. I sighed internally, smiled externally, and said, "Good morning to you too, Dan." He ignored the greeting completely and launched into a 10-minute, detail-by-detail analysis of the message, reading it out loud, then rereading it, then dissecting her choice of punctuation as if we were solving a murder. See, she put a period here. That's cold. Periods are cold. It's like she's cutting me off emotionally. I nodded slowly. Or, she just finished her sentence? He blinked at me like I'd just suggested gravity wasn't real. No, Lisa, you don't understand women. I took a sip of my coffee. You hired me for marketing, not couples counseling. He chuckled as if I'd made a joke. I hadn't. By Tuesday, I'd given up on avoiding him. It was impossible. He'd follow me into the break room, the elevator, the supply closet. Yes, the supply closet. On that particular day, I was in there grabbing printer paper when his voice suddenly filled the tiny space. Do you think my son respects me? I nearly dropped the paper ream. I've never met your son. Yeah, but you're intuitive. Intuition doesn't replace a decade of strained father-son dynamics, I said, brushing past him. The worst part? He loved these conversations. My sarcasm? He thought it was witty banter. My exasperated sighs? He interpreted them as me being deeply invested in his personal growth. The first breaking point came Wednesday. I was on an important Zoom call with a potential client when Dan barged into my office, waving his phone like a torch. Lisa, I need your advice. My girlfriend wants to move in. Is that a good idea? I muted my mic, shot him a glare, and whispered, I'm in a meeting. He leaned closer. It's just a quick yes or no. I closed my eyes and counted to 3. No. Later that afternoon, he popped back in, grinning. I told her no, but then I thought, maybe Lisa was just having a bad day, so I said yes instead. Then why did you ask me? Because you're wise. But also, I follow my heart. I wanted to say, your heart is a GPS set to chaos, but I restrained myself. Thursday morning, I decided to hide. I took my laptop to the tiny, unused conference room on the far side of the building. For 2 glorious hours, I worked in peace. Then, knock, knock. Found you. Dan beamed, stepping inside. So, my therapist said I'm too dependent on you. I raised an eyebrow. Your therapist, as in your actual licensed therapist? Yeah. But she doesn't get me like you do. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Dan, I'm not, anyway, he interrupted, sitting down across from me, let's talk about my attachment style. And that's when it hit me, Dan didn't just see me as his employee. He genuinely saw me as his unpaid, untrained, and unwilling therapist. And unless I did something about it, I was doomed to be his emotional support human forever. But here's the thing about me, I can play nice for a while, but eventually, I bite back. And I had a plan forming in my head. A plan that would make him regret ever mistaking me for his therapist. By Friday morning, I had a fully operational battle plan. It wasn't mean-spirited. I wasn't going to sabotage the company or ruin Dan's life. No. I was going to strategically redirect his endless oversharing, straight into a wall of his own making. Step 1, weaponize agreement. Step 2, introduce therapeutic exercises, completely fabricated, ridiculous ones. Step 3, let him exhaust himself into silence. At 9:07 a.m., Dan appeared at my desk, holding his coffee like it was a microphone. Lisa, I had a dream about my ex-wife last night. Do you think it means yes? I cut him off. Absolutely. He blinked. You don't even know what I was going to say. It doesn't matter. The answer is yes. And I think this is a sign you need to process it through a visualization walk. A what? I lowered my voice like I was sharing an ancient secret. It's a mindfulness technique. You walk around the office pretending every coworker is a metaphor for your unresolved issues. Dan's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. Within minutes, he was circling the sales floor, staring intensely at people and whispering things like, "You represent my trust issues," to a very confused accountant. For the rest of the morning, every time he tried to corner me with a personal story, I fed him another therapy exercise. When he said his girlfriend might be distant lately, I told him to write her a haiku about emotional boundaries. When he complained about his neighbor's loud dog, I told him to bark back, but only during sunset. It's symbolic. The best part? He did them. By lunchtime, he had sent me 3 haikus, all terrible, and a voice memo of him barking softly into the wind. Step 2 of my plan was to let him spiral just enough to become someone else's problem. That afternoon, I invited our HR manager, Tanya, for coffee. I made sure Dan overheard me saying, "Tanya, you know, I've been working closely with Dan on some very personal matters. I think he'd really benefit from your professional expertise. You've got such a calming presence." Tanya smiled politely. Sure. 5 minutes later, Dan was in her office telling her all about his recurring dream involving a giant talking stapler. From my desk, I could hear Tanya say, "Okay, Dan, let's maybe keep it work-related." But Dan was relentless. By Monday, he was back at my desk, plopping himself down like he owned the chair. "I've been thinking about my attachment style again." I sighed. "Dan, you need real therapy." "I have real therapy. But you're more fun." That was the moment I decided to roll out step 3, the nuclear option. "Fine," I said sweetly. "If we're going to keep doing this, we need boundaries. Our sessions will be 30 minutes long, twice a week. And they'll cost you $150 each. Cash only." Dan burst out laughing. "You're hilarious." I didn't laugh. I just kept typing. The silence stretched. Then he asked, "Wait, you're serious?" "Oh yes. My time is valuable. If you want Lisa's life coaching, you'll have to pay for it." The rest of the day, he didn't come near me. And for a glorious 24 hours, I thought I'd won. But on Tuesday morning, a white envelope appeared on my desk. Inside was $300 in cash and a sticky note asterisk, "Let's do Thursdays and Mondays. You're worth it." Dan asterisk, and just like that, my boss officially became my paying client. The first paid session was surreal. Dan showed up with a notebook, 2 pens, and the kind of intense eye contact that makes you want to fake your own death. "Alright," I began, channeling my inner TED Talk host, "let's start with grounding. Close your eyes. Imagine you're a majestic tree," he interrupted. "Do I get to pick the kind of tree?" "Sure. I'm an oak. Strong. Reliable. Great. Now imagine that oak is surrounded by an invasive weed that looks exactly like your mother." Dan opened one eye. "Is this standard therapy?" I smiled. "It's Lisa therapy. Very exclusive." By the second week, I realized something horrifying. Dan wasn't backing off. He was leaning in. He'd started bringing me snacks for our sessions, sending me links to psychology articles, and once, he showed up with a candle. "Aromatherapy," he said. "For ambience." Tanya from HR started giving me side eyes like, "Why are you encouraging this man?" That's when inspiration struck. If I couldn't bore him into leaving me alone, maybe I could overwhelm him into firing me as his therapist. I prepared the ultimate session. I told him to bring workout clothes. He showed up in full gym gear. Then I announced, "Today, we're doing exposure therapy." "Exposure to what?" he asked nervously. "To your fears," I said, pushing him toward the conference room I'd decorated with a life-sized cardboard cutout of his ex-wife, printed at the office supply store, a slideshow of awkward family reunion photos I'd somehow found on Facebook and, in the corner, a Bluetooth speaker playing Sarah McLachlan's Angel on repeat for 45 minutes. I made him narrate his feelings toward each fear object while doing squats and drinking celery juice. By the end, he was pale, sweaty, and muttering something about boundaries. I could almost taste victory. The next morning, I got an email subject therapy hiatus Lisa. I think I need a break from our sessions. You've given me a lot to think about. Also, Tanya suggested I keep work and personal life separate. Appreciate all your help. Danny leaned back in my chair, savoring the silence. No surprise visits. No emotional dumping. Just peace. 2 weeks later, Tanya stopped by my desk. "So, Dan's been spending a lot of time in my office lately. Did you pass him off to me?" I took a slow sip of coffee. "Tanya, some people are just searching for the right therapist. And that's how I won the war. Not by changing Dan, but by changing his target." Moral of the story: sometimes, the best way to solve a problem is to re-gift it.